Stephen, I just want to ask you specifically one of the things that Cenk said, which is that Israel is occupying Gaza, and that's why you see a lot of the retaliation from there. What do you think of that?
I mean, it's hard to prove counterfactual, but I mean, if you're Israeli, you're just going to say we did. We withdrew from Gaza in 2005, and we got Hamas. We withdrew from Lebanon. We got Hezbollah. I mean, these are going to be the arguments that every Israeli makes, and it's kind of hard to argue against that. So, I mean, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I can argue against it. You did a peace deal with Egypt. It worked perfectly. And so you never made a peace deal with Gaza. You just said you kind of have sovereignty, but not really. We can come in and kill you anytime we want. We could cut off your electricity. We could cut off your food supply. We can starve you to death. That's not sovereignty. That's not a real deal. So, and why is Hezbollah attacking? We can say they're terrorists and they're terrible. Fine, no problem. But they're attacking because of the occupation. Same thing for Hamas. Look, the absurdity, and look, and I'm encouraged by Destiny's outlook so far. He's saying this is the Israeli position, because in the old days, I don't know what he feels today, and maybe we'll find out more as we go. But defending the Israeli position is indefensible. The jury's in, and it doesn't. The people of Israel can believe anything they like, but they're not going to change the minds of the rest of the world who have seen the dead children and the rubble. And we all have eyes. All of Gaza's utterly destroyed and annihilated. So they can do all the propaganda in the world, and they can convince themselves, oh, yeah, we had to kill them. We had to occupy them. They're such savage terrorist Muslims. They can never do peace. All they understand is violence. That's why we had to murder them. But no one else in the world believes that nonsense. They look more ridiculous and more insane and more genocidal by the day. Please turn around, Israel. For God's sake, you're doing untold damage. It's going to take 100 years to undo this damage.
Stephen?
I mean, Israel made peace with Egypt, but that's because Egypt had a Sadat figure. Well, they had a Sadat to make peace with. I don't think the Palestinians have ever been represented by somebody who was so willing to actually try and make peace. I also think that it was a bit easier for Egypt to make peace with Israel because Egypt had a country to have after the peace deal, right? Like, give us back the Sinai, and we have our country, and we can be peaceful. And they have their borders, and they've got their territory, and they feel that that's like a just end to I guess hostilities between Israel and Egypt. For the Palestinians, what a just end looks like, I don't think has ever even been clearly enunciated, let alone does every Palestinian or every Palestinian group or leader have the same idea of what a just end would look like, which makes it a lot harder to negotiate.
Real quick, I want to let Gideon speak, but look, you don't negotiate with your friends, you negotiate with your enemies. Before they made the deal, they thought Sadat was the most monstrous terrorist of all time. And remember, Sadat did lead all of the Arab nations to attack and invade Israel. A much bigger war against Israel than what Hamas has done. So they said, and all the right-wingers at that time said, there's no way Egypt will do it. What a naive, ridiculous thing. They'll keep bombing us. We should have never done it. We should never give the land back. You cannot trust those dirty Muslim savage terrorists. And they were wrong. They were 100% wrong. And it helped Israel tremendously to neutralize all the Arab nations trying to attack them. The obvious answer is peace. And it's just heartbreaking that they're choosing not to do that.
Gideon, so I want to ask you a question about peace. So you look back in history, you see Yitzhak Rabin, as Cenk mentioned, doing peace with enemies, not with friends. I mean, you could also do it with friends, of course, but you do a lot of pieces. You try and do that with enemies. Yitzhak Rabin tried. He almost did it. What do you think? There's any chance at all that either Trump or not even Trump, but just is there any chance that Israel could do peace with Hamas if they wanted to?
First of all, Yitzhak Rabin tried, this is true, but he didn't try enough, and he didn't try good enough, and he wasn't courageous enough. The fact that he was murdered made him a mythological peacenik, but he wasn't such a peacenik. The fact that the Oslo Accords didn't touch the core issue of the settlements, the fact that Israel under Rabin wasn't even ready to freeze the settlement project, just show the intentions of Israel. It was a way to unease the occupation, to make it softer, to make it easier to live with. This was not peace, and this was not a real recognition in the rights of the Palestinian people as equal rights to the Jewish rights in this piece of land. Rabin was all along against a creation of a Palestinian state, and in those years a Palestinian state was something achievable, unlikely today when you cannot have it anymore, but then you could still have it. But he didn't believe in it. We just yesterday, they published some expressions of him which were released from the archives. He said very clearly, he said two things. One, there will be never a military solution to the conflict, which is very nice of him. But in the same time, he said a Palestinian state will only lead us to war. So he didn't believe in their right to have a state. So let's not exaggerate about Rabin and about his efforts to do peace. He did something. He made some steps, but they were far of being enough. And I'm not sure, by the way, if he wouldn't be assassinated, if he would have gone much further. Practically, I knew him very well personally. I'm not sure he wouldn't gone much further than this. But right now, really, I get back to this, Eli, that talking about peace now is totally far-fetched. I don't even know to find the words. Let's get to a ceasefire. Let's get to a withdrawal from Gaza. Let's get for a rehabilitation of Gaza. Let's stop the suffering of the people of Gaza. To speak now about peace is, I'm incapable of talking about peace now because knowing Israel and also knowing the atmosphere in Gaza today and in the West Bank, this is not on the table. It's like speaking now about getting to the sun. We cannot get to the sun, and we cannot get for peace now. Let's first of all fix the urgent things. I have my vision for peace. It's the one-state solution. It's a democracy between the river and the sea. It's a one-man, one-vote system where everyone will be equal, Palestinians and Israelis. It will be one democracy like any other democracy in the world. But it's not the time even to talk about it.